And so when I say Chinese, I want you to scream out the nation that's associated with this. For example, if I say Chinese, you're going to say what?
China!
All right, let's say it with authority. When I say Chinese, you say what? China! All right, that's just a test right there. So here we go. Chinese.
China!
Russian.
Russia!
Italian.
Italy!
German.
Germany!
Swedish.
Sweden!
Korean.
Korea!
Egyptian.
Egypt!
Nigerian.
Nigeria!
Black.
Nothing. Tell him, Pastor. Tell him, Pastor. Black, nothing.
I hope you were able to successfully identify the issue.
The lion won't sleep tonight. 'Cause we woke now, and we woke now. I said the lion won't sleep tonight. 'Cause we woke now, and we woke now. They want us to sell our souls to barter profit. Like God's property, it's hard to market. So we steady to aim, keep your eyes on target. Cause when you got to drive, yeah, they'd rather you park it. But I don't valet, you ain't getting these keys. I'm keeping closed hands, I'm on bended knee. I'm just a reflection, dealing with 8 sections. Art mixed with life, you can feel the convection. Your lion won't sleep tonight. 'Cause we woke now, and we woke now. I said the lion won't sleep tonight. 'Cause we woke now, and we woke now. I said the
white man is enacting a story all over the world. We left our homes and flooded the world. We smothered culture. We smothered knowledge. We erased history and rewrote it our way. Myself, my grandfather is 100% Ashkenazi Jewish. Claiming to be Jewish, Ashkenazi Jewish is just a conspiracy. White men claiming to be of tribes of Israel when I'm Germanic. You know, I have no ties to Israel, no ties to Judaism. You know, except loosely written history that's been whitewashed over for centuries. And, you know,
from the Renaissance.
Oh yeah, right. You wipe everything clean. It's funny how exactly the Renaissance. It's this rebirth, but it's white rebirth. I think at the same exact time the Renaissance is happening, Columbus is sailing to America and committing genocide.
Only one true ethnic Jew, the Mizrahi Jew, because they are Africans, and if you read the original Bible written in Phoenician Hebrew, they're not. Jewish people are not Europeans. The modern Jews in Israel are Russians or Khazars to be precise, from Russia. I learned it from my grandfather that because he was an Ashkenazi Jew.
Assalamu alaikum. In the 13th tribe, Arthur Koestler traces the origin of Eastern Europe's Jewish population that was largely decimated by the Nazi onslaught during the Second World War. Through extensive research, he discusses the history of a trading empire that was set up by a tribe known as the Khazars. The Khazar Empire was located between the expanding power blocks of Christianity and Islam, and the people were converted to Judaism by their king as a way of standing apart from both. The Khazarians and their wealth were dispersed through the countries of Eastern Europe after the collapse of the Khazar Empire. The Khazarians were not a Semitic people, that they called themselves Jews after their conversion to Judaism is as absurd as the Chinese Muslims calling themselves Arabs.
You can convert to Judaism. You can't convert to a blood family. You cannot convert to a race. Judaism is a religion. That's all it is. Judaism is a religion. That's all it is.
Judaism is a religion. That's all it is.
They're not Semites at all. They're not Semites at all.
They're not Semites at all.
In fact, most.
Without getting too semantic, or at the risk of getting too semantic, does it matter that the Jews are not Semites, or does this phrase anti-Semitism just means hatred for the Jewish people? They're Ashkenazi, they're Eastern European Jews.
You know, the DNA test that they've done on the Israelis that are living over there, they're Eastern European Ashkenazi Jews.
So when he's saying he's coming to redeem, while he would say, redeem Israel, O God, out of all their troubles. First thing they need to be redeemed at, more dangerous than Hamas, more dangerous than Muslim neighbors, are internal, these, and there's another biblical name, these who say they are Jews and are not.
I was going to ask you about that. In Revelation 3:8, I think, I was going to ask you that question. Does that refer to this time, or can it refer to this time?
It can. It's Revelation 3:9. Indeed, I will make those of the synagogue of Satan who say they are Jews and are not, but lie. Yeah. And there's a different application for it, but we understand this is really there's a practical storyline I've shared before on a program maybe a year ago, I don't know, about the Khazarian mafia and the Khazarian Jews, and I'll just say the briefest understanding of it and how this.
That's what the Zionists did, except instead of a baseball team, they went to try to convince the Jews that the Jewish people are a nation, like France and like Spain. We'll get a land, that's Israel, that's our stadium. We'll get baseball bats and balls, we'll create a language. They sat down to create a language because nations need languages. They sat down to create a language because nations need languages. They sat down to create a language. They sat down to create a language.
They sat down to create a language.
I just had a rabbi give me an analogy. He said, look, imagine you left your home and then someone came and occupied it, and then you try to get it back, and then they went to the judge. Have you heard some of these analogies? Maybe you can.
Yeah, that's assuming that, you know, that's taking it into a place which I don't usually go. That's making the assumption that today's Jews are really the descendants of the ancient Hebrews that used to live in that part of the world some 3,000 years ago. That's making the assumption that today's Jews are really the descendants of the ancient Hebrews that used to live in that part of the world some 3,000 years ago.
That's making the assumption that today's Jews are really the descendants of the ancient Hebrews that used to live in that part of the world some 3,000 years ago.
And you know what else, Jim? I just want to say this to our Christian friends, you know, just to call it as it is and say it straight out, you know, you guys are worshiping one Jew. That's a mistake. You should be worshiping every single one of us, because we all die for your sins every single day. And that's exactly what's going on here. Yeah. We're all God's firstborn, and we're dying for your sins right now because the Jewish people in the land of Israel are the bulwark against the orcs. Okay? The orcs are coming not to a theater near you, but to your home.
Today, it is prohibited, and you can Google this, to do a DNA test in Israel. Totally forbidden. Wrong. It's illegal. It's a crime. You'll be jailed if you do a DNA test in Israel. Why? Because they know the truth will come out. You come from Poland, you come from Ukraine, you came from Europe, you came from everywhere else. And they were the original Middle Eastern Jews who lived together with the Muslims and the Christians for centuries. For centuries. So what happened to a lot of the Jews?
This story begins in October 1949, 1 year after Israel's formation. This is when Netanyahu was born, the second child of a historian. His paternal grandfather was a rabbi and a Zionist writer. His name was Nathan Milikowski. Later in life, he Hebraized his surname from Milikowski to Netanyahu, a name which means God has given.
This is Yair Netanyahu's DNA test that has been leaked. You can see right there his Y DNA is RM198. Descendants of RM198 come from Poland, Russia, Germany, and other European countries. Does this look Semitic to you? Does this look Middle Eastern?
This world
and the next world are asymmetrical. The next world is where the majority of a person's actions, which determine his identity, are compensated. For the righteous, they exist in the world to come and they're rewarded. And for those whose major complexion is black, are excluded from the world to come.
Hitler was, and the Nazis, of course, expanded on Margaret Sanger's approach to eugenics, right? Eugenics was a movement that was born in the United States under hard doctrines of racism with the intent of eliminating the tribe of Judah in the African-American community in this country, right? To eliminate them. With the intent of eliminating the tribe of Judah, with the intent of eliminating the tribe of Judah in the African American community in this country, right? To eliminate them.
You know what you are? You're an ancient Israelite.
Ancient Israel, that's who we are. That's who we are. So if you give me time,
But
already said.
No, we don't have.
So many years.
I know. Look at this. This is pages and pages of
Yes.
notes, and I promise we'll give more teaching. But here is my challenge to you.
All right.
I'm hearing some of your traditions. It's like the days of the Bible.
Yes.
Do you want to remain ancient Israelites, or you want to be Jews? Do you want to?
Genesis chapter 11 verse 10 explains the genealogy of Shem. Shem was a black man in Africa. If you repeat this fact, they can't laugh at you. If you repeat this fact, they can't laugh at you. If you repeat this fact, they can't laugh at you.
Peace and blessings to everyone. Hope and pray all is well with you guys. Hope and pray that you guys had a blessed Shabbat. And want to announce as well for those that are still interested in coming out to our Passover celebration. Even though we're filled to maximum capacity for us, the lodging. But if you want to come and celebrate with us for us Passover, for us the day. Now, let me make it clear. The Passover is actually next week, next Shabbat. So what we're doing is actually celebrating the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And we're going to do our celebration from the 10th from the 17th through the 19th. All right. And so for those that want to come and celebrate with us on the 19th, feel free to, I'm going to make sure I'm going to drop the link, at least the address, and you guys could come out and celebrate with us. We expecting to have we're having a huge turnout with this, with the event to celebrate. So Passover, Pasach is actually the 12th. And Feast of Unleavened Bread begins on the 13th. And so that whole week is a celebration. All right. So because of the facility that we are leasing, they did not have any availability until the time that we're leasing it for. So it's still within the week. So that's why we're doing it at the latter portion of the week. All right. So just want to give clarity. So Passover is celebrated at your home. Quite honestly, that's the first Passover was done at home. Hamashiach celebrated the Passover in I call it an Airbnb because they rented someone's, utilized someone else's home. All right. So of course, they went to the temple for the sacrifices, right? And, then, brought their portion of it home or to their house, and they ate the meal together. But again, anyone that's interested in it, I think the post is still inside the community post, but I'll also post it, try to make sure I'll post it inside the chat here. And so I really appreciate you guys for, all the love and support, prayerfully. Matter of fact, I'm not just going to say prayerfully. The goal is this is going to be the last piece of property that we lease to do our feast days. We spent a lot. It costs a lot, family, and we don't charge. We normally don't charge for any of our feast days. And for our feast days, for this feast day. We plan to just have it from Friday, really Shabbat, right, to have it on that day. But more people want to come, so we was like, okay, we'll come in. We'll start it Friday. Before you know it, people want to come earlier, so it's 3 days. All right. So we don't charge for anything. We don't normally charge for anything, from the food, the whole nine. And so this year we're putting out a lot. So I look at it like this past 6 months at the facilities that we're using. This would be the second time we're using it for within the past 6 months, and we'll be spending in the upwards of $10,000. And I just said enough is enough. We're just going to secure our own property and go from there. And that's what we're doing. We should be closing out on our property pretty soon. Right now, we're just awaiting for the architectural engineering design of the landscape, giving us a layout of where to build the structures and all that other stuff. So prayerfully, we'll be closing out within the next 2 to 3 weeks. I believe we could have it. We'll be closing out by the end of this month, and then moving forward in implementing phase 1 in terms of actually, building on the land. But nevertheless, we'll keep you posted. And when we have our feast day and our official opening for our breaking ground, I'll keep you guys posted, when we have our first official service there. And you guys will be invited to come celebrate with us. But anyway, I know this is an unscheduled live. I'm trying to get back into the flow of things. It's just one of those things that a lot is going on with, the ministry, of course, the personal life in terms of have 2 daughters getting ready to graduate from college, literally weeks apart. Just a lot of stuff going on. And of course, you already know YouTube, the shadow banning, it is what it is. So I'm trying to get better, haven't been doing the uploads like I would normally do. But again, I thank you guys for the love and support. All right. So let's go to get into it. All right. And I was just thinking about this. And this is a lesson that I've done a while back. Let me go ahead and put in the banner. This is a lesson that I've done a while back, but I was just really thinking about, the Passover, Pasach, and as you see the thought, they were never slaves in Egypt. And I thought about that. They were never slaves in Egypt. I'm sure you guys can figure out who I'm referring to. And, I have a source here that I didn't get a chance to put in inside this presentation. It's a great source. Matter of fact, I may show the source first. Let me see here. Let me see if I can pull that source up. I may share the source first before I get into this presentation. And I have a couple of sources, some sources I just don't share, especially, I'm not going to mention the person's name, but this individual was, really back in like the 19th century, 18th, 19th century, wrote a book pointing out how the name stealers, right? Just even their body, their anatomy, that there's no proof that they had ever did any kind of hard labor, right? And pointing out that they were never slaves. They were never. There's no, just based off of their anatomy, like they never was enslaved, did any hard labor, and so forth. So I'm not going to, mention that source because I've been noticing that certain people that have mentioned that source ended up getting strikes or videos taken down or channel altogether taken down. But I am going to show this one source before we get into it. Let me see here. Let me see if I can share my screen. And I want you guys to take a look at this source here. Let me see if, let me try to share this screen here real quick. All right, I'm going to stop this screen share here. And let me see if I can, I'm going to move this over. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Yeah, I'm going to move this over here. And let me see if I can share this screen. All right, where is it? Okay. All right. All right. The Hebrews in the biblical period. And what's great about this source here that you see on your screen, it actually gives illustrations. It actually gives pictures of, the ancient Israelites. Refers to during the time of Abraham, far as him, we all know Abraham is a Hebrew, giving information about that. And, this is a great source, but I'm just going to go through this source just to give you some images out of here. Let me see here. All right. So the Hebrew in the biblical period. All right. So let's go to, which page is this? Yeah, let's go to this page. Let me see if I can switch this to one page. All right. And I'm going to zoom it out a little. And I'm going to stretch my main page out so you guys could see this. All right. Can you guys see my screen? All right. And so this book is from a book titled Picture History of Jewish. All right. But nevertheless, but you see some of the images here, but a couple of key images I want to get to. Let me zoom this out to make sure I'm not bypassing it. All right, here we go. Let me go to a couple of key images. All right, let me zoom this one in. All right, and let's see what it says at the bottom of this. It says here, thousands of war captives who were transformed into slaves. Let me just highlight this so you guys can see it. All right, what I'm reading. Thousands of war captives who were transformed into slaves made it possible for the Egyptian king or kings to implement their feats of engineering. Chained captives are shown on, let me close it. Chain captives are shown on these painted clay facing plaques from a building erected by Ramses II in honor of the king's brave warriors from the period of the 19th dynasty. All right, so you see the images, right? This doesn't look like name stealers. Okay, you see the image here. All right, let me click out of this. All right, so let me scroll down. All right. You see how the servants look here. They are not, Caucasians. All right. And this says here, opposite page, motto of granary. Taxes were paid in produce, and the wheat collected in this way was stored in the state granaries scattered throughout Egypt. At the right, the taskmasters It says taskmaster stake in hand. All right. And it goes on to say stands over the people to supervise their work. At the lower right, a clerk records the number of sacks of wheat being stored in the granary. All right. National Museum, Copenhagen. Okay. So let's scroll down. Family, they know they're not the people. All right. This is another image here. All right. These don't look like Caucasians, do they? These don't look like descendants by way of the Khazarians. This doesn't look like, Ashkenaz. Let me scroll down so you guys could see more. All right. So these are images. These are displays that are in the museums that they don't want us to see. Right? They don't want us to see. They don't want anyone to know these images exist. All right. All right. These are the Egyptians. These are whom they conquered and enslaved. All right. All right. Well, truth be told, this is a PDF, so I'm not going to be able to adjust. This is how the image is. But nevertheless, when I put this into my PowerPoints, I make adjustments to the actual display, to make it brighter. But, I didn't have time to put it in my PowerPoint. All right, let's scroll down. Look at what it says here, right? And I want you to pay attention to this image. Now I'm going to read the information here underneath this photo. It says here, the Egyptians became familiar with the horse and wagon after the victory of the Hyksos, or Hyksos, however you want to pronounce it, in the beginning of the long period, 1730 to 1580 BCE, of the rule of Asiatic people in the land of the pharaohs. This painting of a coffin shows Tutankhamun shooting his enemies from a war chariot, right? So this is this is in the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. Okay, but you see the images here. These don't look like Caucasians. These don't look like Caucasians. All right, let's scroll down. Let's go to another image here. Let me see here. Are there any more? All right, let's scroll down. All right, family. Now, does this look like any of the name stealers? See, we get told all the time that, it doesn't matter how Hamashiach look. It doesn't matter how the ancient Israelites look. If you mention how they look, that they look like us, that they are us, that they're melanated, dark melanated people, they'll tell you that it doesn't matter. You guys know what I'm talking about. They will literally tell us it doesn't matter how they look. Let me play my clip here. I haven't played this clip in a while, but this is what they will tell us right here.
It just doesn't matter. 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 It just doesn't matter.
It does not matter what color Jesus was. What matters is that he came to the earth, lived a perfect life, died a death for the sins of the world, and then conquered the grave, proving that he is the Son of God. That's all that matters. That's all that matters. That's all that matters.
It just doesn't matter. 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 It just doesn't matter.
You guys know what I'm talking about. That's what you hear. And the sad thing about it, you have our own brothers and sisters pushing that same nonsense. Pushing that same nonsense. Saying that it doesn't matter. But yet they go to assemblies and they have a Caucasian Christ versus a Negro Messiah. Now, family, I'm working on Blotted Out 2, part 2. I should have that done within the next week and a half. I mean, like I said, with everything going on, I couldn't really put direct a lot of time into it. But part 2 will be released within the next 2 weeks. And it's going to be some nuggets, some major nuggets I'm going to drop in that. And I'm going to drop more sources like what you see here. Now, again, family, does this look like what we see, the portrayal of the ancient Israelites? This doesn't look like any of what we've been accustomed to see. See, they don't want to tell you this right here. Let me. You guys know, these clips I've been showing them for quite some time. But they don't want to show you these clips, right? Let me play a couple of clips, starting with this right here: ancient Israelite bones discovered. Ancient bones, Negroes. They don't want us to know about this right here.
Their bones were discovered in Khazar caves near Nazareth in Galilee in 1933. 13 fragile skeletons, one a woman, a tiny baby at her feet. When these bones were first uncovered, they were the oldest complete modern human skeletons ever found.
The numerous skeletons that have been found in caves in Israel at the sites of Khazar and Shul show us that there were modern humans outside of Africa over 100,000 years ago.
So you heard him say they found Negro bones. Nazareth, Galilee. He didn't say they found Ashkenazi or Caucasian, Europeans. He said Negroid bones. But then we have not just the name stealers, but we have also, another group that has dominated those areas as well, insulting us. Let me play this person right here.
Now, the problem for me, it's not about color. It's not about white and black. This is a very reductive way to talk about things. This is the way that Americans talk about it. I'm very sorry. I come from Egypt. Egypt has a very diverse color palette. People can look like me or they can look deeper skin tone like Anwar Sadat, who comes from a Nubian origin. It's not about black and white. It's about the continuous culture appropriation and falsification of history that has been done by what the so-called Afrocentrist movement. The Afrocentric movement started last century as a way, in a good intention, to teach African American about their rich history of West Africa, the great empire of Benin, of Ghana, of Songhali, the great empire of Mali. But the thing is, that's why you find people like Kevin Hart, who subscribes to these theories, who claim that his ancestors built the pyramids. That's why you find people like Kevin Hart.
That's why you find people like Kevin Hart,
who subscribes to these theories, who claim that his ancestors built the pyramids, who claim that his ancestors built the pyramids,
who claim that his ancestors built the pyramids.
I'm sorry, your ancestors had their own wonderful civilization in West Africa. They are culture appropriating my culture.
The Arab is not an Egyptian.
I come from Egypt. Egypt has a very diverse color palette. People can look like me or they can look deeper skin tone like Anwar Sadat, who comes from a Nubian origin.
The Arab is not an Egyptian.
The people who built the pyramids were not Arabs. The people who built the pyramids were not Arabs.
The people who built the pyramids were not Arabs.
I'm sorry, your ancestors had their own wonderful civilization in West Africa. They are culture appropriating my culture.
The people who built the pyramids were not Arabs. I know, man, because I am responsible for returning to the bloody Arabs the splinters of the Sphinx's nose and chin, and the Arabs do not want to remake it because it looks Negro.
That's a mic drop. See, why is this important? See, when you hijack a community's identity, you have to hijack the identity of all those that are connected to it, right? All the other communities that may be connected to it. Like in this case, we know that Egypt is connected to the Israelites. So therefore, they can't just whitewash Israel, the true Israelites. They have to whitewash the Egyptians. Not only do they whitewash the Egyptians, they have to whitewash the Canaanites. They have to whitewash all these different communities that go hand in hand with the Israelites. All right, so let me show you another image here. And I see a super chat here. Let me give a shout out here real quick. Want to give a shout out, family. Let's show some love to Cheryl Steele. Thank you for the love and support. Really appreciate it. Praise to the Most High. Hallelujah. And I'm going to get back into revealing information like this because, family, you know that I reveal so much information from the true complexion of what's his name? Now I can't think of his name. Shakespeare, to sharing sources that shows and gives information on how the Israelites were whitewashed through religion. It began like the 16th century. I shared a lot of sources over the years. So I'm going to continue on that, and I'm going to do special series, so that way to make it easier. That way you guys could watch it, and that way it makes it easier for you guys to be able to share this information and also articulate it. But thank you again, Cheryl Steele. Thank you for the love and support. But again, family, let's give Cheryl Steele, let's show us some love for the super chat here. Appreciate it again. Praises to the Most High. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. All right. So let's go to another image here. Let me see here. All right. All right. Now, as you see here, it says opposite page, Assyrian relief showing the Hebrews abandoning Lachish, which had been captured by Sennacherib. I can see it during his war against Hezekiah. This is in a British museum. Then you also see the Assyrian relief showing Phoenician warship in the Assyrian king's navy. The warship were equipped with a sharp prow and 2 rows of oarsmen. All right, this is at the British Museum. So let me go back. Let me scroll up. These are the 2 images that is referring to. This image right here, and these are Negroes, right? Let's go up here first. These are Negroes. These are Negroes, even though they're different. They're not the Israelites. These are the Canaanites or the Assyrians. I believe that it mentioned the Assyrians. These are the Assyrians. Let me make sure. Let me go down here to make sure. Yeah, these are the Assyrians. Both of these images are the Assyrians. And look at the images here. Let me see if I can zoom in closer so you guys could see more. It's starting to distort a little bit. These are not Caucasians. These are not Caucasian. Look at the hair. Look at the beard. These are not Caucasians. All right. So let's go to the other image here that it made mention to, and you can see the oarsman. Look at those afros. See, this is the information that they don't want us to see. This is the information. Let me zoom out so you can see the caption here. All right, as it says here, it says Assyrian relief showing Phoenicians, right, warships in the Assyrian king's navy. The warship were equipped with a sharp prow. So this is saying that this warship is made by the Phoenicians. And it says in the Assyrian king's navy, the warship were equipped with a sharp prow and 2 rows of oarsmen. And you see the oarsmen here. They don't want us to see this. They want to keep us dumbed down. Right? They want us to continue to receive lies like this. Let me play this video. You know, they want us to accept lies like this. And this person, as I railed on this person for quite some time, but this person double talks. This person actually admitted that his ancestors, his people, took something, took on an identity. Let me see if I have it here.
You say, well, where did the name Ashkenazi came from? So, a little over 1,000 years ago, as Jewish people scattered around the world had now emigrated in Europe and now were living in the Rhineland in Germany, they looked at the name Gomer in Genesis 10, and they connected Gomer with Germany, so they took on the identity of the name Ashkenaz. It has nothing to do with Ashkenaz in the Bible, which is a descendant of Japhet. It's just a name that was taken. Okay, it's that simple. Just like my last name Brown doesn't refer to the color of my skin. Just like my last name Brown doesn't refer to the color of my skin.
Just like my last name Brown doesn't refer to the color of my skin.
Michael Brown, I am Caucasian. Just like my last name Brown doesn't refer to the color of my skin or anything else. It was shortened from a Russian name when my grandfather came over at Ellis Island. The name got shortened to Brown. It's just a name. That's all it is. So the idea that Ashkenazi Jews are descended from Japhet is a myth, 100% false, zero truth to it. Just study the history.
Come on, family. I mean, if that's double talk. You know what I mean? He mastered double talk. And I have to pull this out. I haven't pulled this out in a while.
Stranger danger! Stranger danger! Stranger danger! Stranger danger!
Stranger danger. All right? Stranger danger. That's right, Rochelle. Names mean everything. And we see the playbook, right? The Babylonians did what to the Israelites? Changed our names and placed names, had given our ancestors new names that pointed to their culture, to their deities. See, our names points to Yahweh, right? You'll see the short form Yah, but unfortunately, most of us, or many of us, I'm not going to say most of us, but many of us that are in the church are embracing this stuff. And even in this awakening, you have some that don't see the importance of those ancient Hebrew names and promoting it as if it's a problem with many of you guys wanting to what? Return and start using the Hebrew. That's the prophecies of Isaiah. I believe it's Isaiah either chapter 44 or chapter 48, where it says that the Israelites was going to start taking on the surnames. In other words, taking on the names like Israel, Jacob, Yah. We see that happening right now, right? Many of our brothers and sisters are embracing Hebrew names now, ancient Hebrew names, not these transliterations, because saying Jacob, that's a transliteration, because there was no name Jacob with a J inside the scriptures. Those are transliterations. The actual name is Yaakobah or Yaaqab Ba. The name Israel, Yashara'al. The name of Yah, right? His full name, Yahweh. But we have brothers and sisters that are pushing this as if there's a problem with doing this. This is part of the restoration of who? Us. This is our identity. So this is the image, right, that they want you to see. This is the image that we were pre-programmed with. You guys remember this? This is supposed to be Moses when he was enslaved. I mean, when he was working as a general, when he was operating as a general in the Egyptians' army. And then this is supposed to be him as a Hebrew slave. Come on, family. Man, if you go back and watch that movie is filled with so many insults. So many insults. So many insults. If I had enough time, I would upload one of the clips. You know, one of the craziest scenes was when Moses was in the house, right? And remember, the death angel was going through the city. So Moses is in the house with his, Charlton Heston, right? The person, the image of Moses. I'm not going to say Moses, but you see, he's there with his so-called mother, right? And then his, let's just call it adopted mother, Pharaoh's daughter, she comes over and she has 2 Egyptians with her. These are servants. Guess they look like you and I. They dark like you and I. So when they came into the house, they disappeared. They went to the back of the house. Kind of like how they treated us in slavery, right? Man, there's so much foolishness, how they programmed us. So this is the image that they want you to know, but they don't want you to know about the true images right here. Right. And I will say, I thank the Most High for even, with AI. Yeah, I generated this image in the background here with AI because I want to show more of an accurate image of who's who. You wouldn't see these guys right here, this guy right here out in this sun. Number one, the melanin wouldn't allow that to happen because he don't have any. He don't have them nowhere near the melanin like we do. Wouldn't be able to handle it, right? So are there any Israelites mistaken for Egyptians, right? It's in the scriptures. It is in the scriptures. There are Israelites that are mistaken for Egyptians. Joseph passed for an Egyptian. And this image right here is an image of an actual Pharaoh. This Pharaoh don't look Caucasian, right? This is a Negro Pharaoh. All right. But Joseph passed for an Egyptian. This is Genesis chapter 42, starting at verse 6. Look at this. And Joseph was the governor over the land, and he it was that sold to all the people of the land. And Joseph's brethren came and bowed down themselves before him with their faces to the earth. And Joseph saw his brethren, and he knew them, but made himself stranger to them, and spake roughly unto them. And he said unto them, Whence come ye? And they said, From the land of Canaan, to buy food. And Joseph knew his brethren, but they knew not him. So in their eyes, he looked like an Egyptian. But if you leave it to the name stealers, if you leave it to the Roman Catholic Christian Church, they'll have you believe this image. Well, I thought I put here. Up, I'm gonna get to it. I'll get to that image here in a second. So let's deal with Moses here. Moses passed for an Egyptian. Exodus chapter 2, verse 9. And Pharaoh's daughter said unto her, take this child away and nurse it for me, and I will give thee thy wages. And the woman took the child and nursed it. And and the child grew, Gadal, and she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And she called his name Moses, Mashah. And she said, because I drew him out of the water, Mayam. The Hebrew definition of Moses, and I want to make it clear. I know many would say Moshe is the name. This is not Moses' ancient name. His name is Mashah. Remember, in ancient Hebrew, there was no vowel letters, right? Everything was accompanied with an ah sound. So Moshe, right, that is actually Israeli. But nevertheless, it says here, Mashah means to pull out, draw out. So when we go to Near East studies and just deal with the name Moses, just so you guys can understand where it comes from, because this is where you get into loan words. Now, Moses, Mashah, in the Egyptian language, the Egyptian culture, it refers to the son of. That's what it means, the son of. And then it'll be associated with a pharaoh there. So we see this is just confirming it, the abbreviation Mose, and we know that there was no O sounds in ancient Hebrew. Let me just play this real quick, because I always have at least one or two people inside the comment section wanting to challenge this, but there was no O sounds in ancient Hebrew. That did not come about until the 9th century. Let me play this real quick.
Here's a chart that summarizes vowel class and length. And you can see across the top the three classes, ah, e, and u. And then down the side the four lengths, long, medium, short, and very short. So let's just go over this chart. We'll start with the ah class vowels. The long vowel is cholam vav, and you'll recall that this says O as in snow. Now you might wonder why an O vowel is in the ah class, and this is because of historical considerations. Originally there was no O sound in Hebrew. Everything
All right, so you heard him say there was no O sound in Hebrew, ancient Hebrew. So the U sound comes from the O sound, right? Pretty much you see the succession where you see A, E, I, O, U. The original vowel is the ah. That short sound, ah. Not the long sound, A. It's ah. But anyway, so the abbreviation Moses, which will actually be Mashah, it says it should be not that the second consonant in the Hebrew name is a shin. In ancient Hebrew, it's shah or shan, and it only makes one sound. But this is telling you that the verb mashah, I'm just going to say it in the ancient, is also found in the Old Testament under the name Ramses, Ra Mashah, right? Where, however, the Egyptian, let me go here, verbal form in the original name is a perfect participle, Ra Mashah, right? And it says Re is he that born him. All right, but let me skip over here. I want to get to a key point here. The word Mose or Masha in Egyptian meant son or born. It is a very common element in Egyptian theophoric names such as Thutmoses, which means son of Thoth, Ramses, which means son of Ra, Ah Moses, son of Ah. So guess what? In Moses' case, it simply means son or born. But guess what? Moses could not take on any of these names because he's not part of their bloodline. And so Pharaoh's daughter changed the meaning of the name, saying taken out of water. That's what Masha means, taken out of the water. So Moses, right, the father of the 18th dynasty. Let's talk about Masha. That would be his ancient pronunciation. right? King of Egypt, of ancient Egypt, reigned 1539 to 14 BCE, and founder of the 18th dynasty, who completed the expulsion of the Hyksos, which is the Asiatic rulers of Egypt, right? These are actually Hebrews here, Shemitic people, invaded Palestine and exerted Egypt's hegemony over northern Nubia to the south. And here's some hidden facts about the 18th dynasty. These are some wigs that they wore. Some of you guys may remember this. These are some ancient wigs. And the reason why you see what looks like appear to be highlights is because of the chemicals that they used at that time when they would preserve the cadaver, so to speak. So this is the ancient wigs. This is us right here, family. This is us right here. There's no denying it. There is no denying it. That hair looks just like our hair. Let me see if I have an actual video here. I may have taken it down. Yeah, I may have accidentally taken it down. I thought I still had it saved. All right. But anyway, come on, family. Look at the braids here. Let me zoom in so that way you guys can see the braids here. Right? You see the braids. You see the locks. Look at the texture. Now, had it not been for, as I pointed out, for the chemicals that they use, it caused this here to straighten out. But it would be tight curls like how you would see our hair. Like, so here's an image of this here. This is a video from the British Museum. This is how another one of those wigs, and look at how it looks. It looks just like our hair, because it is. All right, so you guys can see it zooming in. All right, can't get around it. Hair like wool, right? Doesn't it look like wool? Doesn't that look like wool? All right. They don't want you to see this. They do not want you to see this. Look at all those wigs. Why don't we see these? Why don't we see this information? Why are we not privy to this information? All right. Now, look at this here. This looks nothing like the name stealers. And as you see here, look at the tips here. I want to show you this here. Look at the tips. The tips are still locked, right? But because, again, the chemicals that they use to preserve the bodies, the dead, it straightened the hair. All right. So these wigs dates back to the 18th dynasty. Okay. So those who are too black, this is a quote from Aristotle, right? 320 BCE. Those who are too black are cowards-like. For instance, the Egyptians and Ethiopians. But those who are excessively white are also cowards, as we can see from the example of women. So it's making it clear that the Egyptians are what color? Black. The Ethiopians are black. All right. I don't like to use the color, the tone. I mean, that tone. Should I say that Crayola color black? But for the sake of the conversation or reading the source, quoting the source, I'm using it. All right. They're dark melanated people. So this is coming from Apollodorus, 7 BCE. Affirms that Egyptos conquered the country of the black-footed ones and called it Egypt after himself. Herodotus, several Egyptians told me that in their opinion, the Colchidians were descendants of soldiers of Sesostris. I had conjectured as much myself from 2 pointers. Firstly, I mean, firstly, because they have black skin and kicking hair. So they're making it clear. I like to listen to read the ancient people, what they have to say, not this new stuff. So this is one of the things that we hear, right? About, again, color doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what Hamashiach looks like, why they have the Messiah looking like them. So if skin complexion doesn't matter, why did Yahweh use skin complexion as a sign? Right? We already know what the word sign is. For those that are checking in for the first time, I'll just explain it to you real quick. Now, I want to make it clear here because, there's some hating going on. Basically in a nutshell, the word on the streets, you have people putting foul information out about those that are teaching ancient Hebrew. Now, family, me going into a comprehensive, strong dictionary of the Bible is just simply showing you guys how to go into these sources, right? Me, in terms of actually teaching ancient Hebrew, I have actual ancient Hebrew lessons, and we do teach it in our assembly. But me opening up a comprehensive, strong dictionary, this is not teaching Paleo Hebrew. This is simply showing you how to go into these sources and extract the information that you need to extract to get what you need. Okay. So again, when we see here, Oth, right, in the Israeli oath, it says here, or Awath, it says a signal, evidence, miracle, right? Mark, miracle, proof. All right. So this word again means proof. It means evidence, right? That's the key. When you see this word sign in a sign, it means what? Proof. It means evidence. So let's go to Exodus chapter 4, starting at verse 1. Let's see the evidence here. All right. All right. All right. So let's go into it right here. All right. So Exodus chapter 4, starting at verse 1. And Moses answered and said, but behold, they will not believe me nor hearken Shammai or Shammai. And we see here, believe, Amanyan, right? Amanyan, which comes from the primitive root word Aman, right? It says, but they will not believe me nor hearken Shammai or Shammai. In other words, listen with intelligence unto my voice, for they will say, Yahweh hath not appeared unto thee. And Yahweh said unto him, what is that in thy hand? And in the Hebrew word is yad. And he said, a rod. In other words, matah. Okay. So look at what happens here. It said, let me read it one more time. It says, and Moses answered and he said, but behold, they will not believe. And the they is the Israelites, Yashara'al. They will not believe me. They will not hearken. In other words, listen with intelligence unto my voice, for they will say, Yahweh hath not appeared unto thee. And Yahweh said unto him, what is that in thy hand? And he said, a rod. So this is dealing with his identity, of those understanding what a rod is, what it means, a shepherd's staff in among the culture of the Hebrews. That staff represents their identity. That's like equivalent to a driver's license that we may use today to identify who we are, and other forms of ID. So the lamad, right? Lamad means staff. It also means disciple, to learn. Numerical value is 30. And you see, this looks like a shepherd's staff. All right. So this is identity. And when we go back here, it says here, this is the second sign. And Yahweh said, furthermore, and I want to make it clear that staff represents identity. I want to reiterate that point. Okay. And so when you study Judah, remember Yahweh, Judah, the son, how the son of Jacob, how he, for a moment of pleasure with Tamar, he gave away the very things that identified him. His bracelets, his rings, his staff. Those are the things that identify. It's identifiers. So, and Yahweh said, furthermore, unto him, put now thine hand into thy bosom, And he put his hand into his bosom, and when he took it out, behold, his hand was leprous as snow. So when he put his hand, yad, right? He put it inside. It says he put that his hand inside his bosom, right? And then when he took it out, it became leprous, sarah, as snow, shalak. All right, making it clear, shalak, white as snow. And he said, put thine hand into thy bosom again. And he put his hand into his bosom again. And he plucked it out of his bosom. And behold, it turned again as other flesh. Now, guess what, family? I'm going to show you an image here of what they want you to believe, the image, what's being portrayed here. Verse 8, and it shall come to pass, if they will not believe thee, neither hearken to the voice of the first sign, right? The identity, the staff, that they will believe the voice of the latter. The Most High saying, hey, if they don't believe the first sign, they will believe the second sign, right? Because your skin complexion is changing, it's becoming, it's losing all its pigmentation. See, this is the image that they, when I say they, the church, Catholicism, the name stealers, this is what they want you to believe. They want you to believe that this is how Moses looked. They want you to believe that this is Joseph in Egypt. They want you to believe this is Apostle Paul being mistaken for an Egyptian. This is what they want you to believe. No, family, we're not rolling with that. But yet they want to tell us that, it doesn't matter. But this is what they want you to believe. And guess what, family? That's why all of us, these kids right here, these represents our facial expressions when they want us to accept a Caesar Borgia. We know that Hamashiach did not look like Caesar Borgia. None of the Israelites look like Caesar Borgia, but this is what they want you to believe. This is what they're trying to stuff down our throat. So the second sign for the non-believing Israelites is Moses' skin complexion. That's a fact. So Apostle Paul again was mistaken for an Egyptian. Acts chapter 21, verse 37. Look at this. As Paul was to be led into the castle, he said unto the chief captain, may I speak unto thee? Who said, canst thou speak Greek? Art not thou that Egyptian which before these days made us an uproar and led us out into the wilderness, 4,000 men that were murdered? See, they thought Apostle Paul was an Egyptian. See, Claudius concluded that Paul was the Egyptian terrorist who had led thousands up the Mount of Olives just 3 years earlier. Insurrections happen all the time during the watch of Felix. Why would the commander pick out of this particular character to associate with the Apostle Paul? Josephus recorded this very event. Look at what Josephus says about this invasion, right? This insurrection. It says here, this is coming from the Antiquities of Judah, book 20, chapter 8. These works that were done by the robbers filled the city with all sorts of impiety. And now these impostors and deceivers persuaded the multitude to follow them into the wilderness and pretended that they would exhibit manifest wonders and signs that should be performed by the providence of God. And many that were prevailed on by them suffered the punishment of their folly. For Felix brought them back and then punished them. Moreover, they came out of Egypt about this time to Jerusalem, one that said he was a prophet, and advised the multitude of the common people to go along with him to the Mount of Olives, as it was called, which lay over against the city, and at the distance of 5 furlongs. He said farther that he would show them from thence how, at his command, the walls of Jerusalem would fall down, and he promised them that he would procure them an entrance into the city through the walls. And when they were fallen down, now when Felix was informed of these things, he ordered his soldiers to take their weapons. And it goes on to say, and it came against them with a great number of horsemen and footmen from Jerusalem and attacked the Egyptians. All right, so this is confirming what I pointed out about Apostle Paul, why he was mistaken for this particular Egyptian. It says he also slew 400 of them and took 200 alive. But the Egyptian himself escaped out of the fight, but did not appear any more. So Joseph, Miriam, and the Messiah, they successfully hid in Egypt. This is Matthew chapter 2, starting at verse 13. Look at what it says. And when they were departed, behold, the angel of Yahweh appeared to Joseph in a dream, saying, arise and take the young child and his mother and flee into Egypt, and be thou there until I bring thee word. For Herod will seek the young child to destroy him. When he arose, he took the young child and his mother by night and departed into Egypt, and was there until the death of Herod, that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken of Yahweh by the prophet, saying, out of Egypt have I called my son. Right? And there it is. That's what they want you to believe. They want you to believe that while Yahushua was in Egypt as a child, that's him mingling among the Egyptians. That's what they want you to believe, family. So what prophecies are being fulfilled? Let's go to Numbers chapter 24, verse 8. Elohim brought him forth out of Egypt. That's what was mentioned here. Let's go back here. That's what was mentioned in Matthew's. Out of Egypt have I called my son. Right? And it says by the prophet. Who's the prophet? We're dealing with Moses. Let's go to Numbers 24, verse 8. Elohim brought him forth out of Egypt. He hath, as it were, the strength of an unicorn. He shall eat up the nations, his enemies, and shall break their bones and pierce them through with his arrow. Revelation 11:8. Let's see what it says. And their dead bodies shall lie in the streets of this great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt, where also our Adonai was crucified. So, family, endless amount of information to prove that they were never, when I say they, the name stealers were never enslaved. You know, it's interesting. I watched a few of them debate, and they'll talk about when they mention slavery, they'll mention the Egyptian slavery. They won't mention any other slavery. They mention Egyptian. But we as a community, we know we was in perpetual slavery. It wasn't just Egypt. From Egypt, we went to multiple slavery forms of slavery when you read the books of the Judges. And then from there, you see some additional periods of slavery from the Syrians, the Babylonians, the Medo-Persians, the Greeks, the Romans. Just a perpetual enslavement. So was the Scythians ever enslaved in Egypt? And guess what, family? I'm going to say, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Was the Khazarians ever enslaved in Egypt? Were they Were they doing this in the background that you see here? Let me zoom in so you guys can see the background clearly. Were they doing this in Egypt? They weren't doing this, and they were not even, I'm going to prove to you that they weren't even in Egypt. So was the Khazarians ever enslaved in ancient Egypt? Was the Ashkenazis ever enslaved in ancient Egypt? Now, you guys know the source here. Let me see if I have the video. If not, I'll play the video if I have it here instead of reading all of this. Let me see here. I don't have it here. I think I took it. I removed it when I uploaded some videos here. All right. This is Aaron Elhake, right? He's a Jewish geneticist. This publication was published about 14 years ago, I believe. 10 to 14. I want to say, 10 to 14 years ago, somewhere around that. And he proved that the Khazarian hypothesis is real. Okay. And let's see what he says here real quick. Let's see what he says here. Aaron Elhake, a geneticist at the Johns Hopkins School of Public Health, thinks so. In a recently published study in Genome Biology Evolution, he is calling for a rewrite of commonly held assumptions about Jewish ancestry. Instead of being primarily the descendants of the 12 tribes of Israel, present-day Jewish populations are, finds Elhake, primarily the children of a Turkish people who lived in what is now Russia, north of Georgia, east of Ukraine. This civilization, the Khazars, converted from the tribal religions to Judaism between the 7th and 9th century. The controversy cut into Elhake's works run deep, far past the lab bench. Among some circles, his conclusions are bound to be unpopular. This is the first scientific paper that proved the Khazarian hypothesis and rejected the Rhineland hypothesis, he says. And with it about 40 years of research. Although his findings will not be welcome in all circles, Elhake's interest is more medical than political. All I want is to help my colleagues who are studying genetic disorders, he says. I hope this work will open up a new era in genetic studies where population stratification will be used more. But then he goes on to say this. Previously, studies had, for example, combined the question of similarity among and between Jewish populations, the question of ancestry and relatedness to non-Jewish populations. Elhake viewed these questions separately. Jewish communities are less homogeneous than is popular thought, he says. With Jewish communities along the former Khazarian border showing the most heterogeneity, his second question centered on ancestry. When comparing Jewish communities to their non-Jewish neighbors, Caucasus or Levant, in other words, Levant is what they call the Middle East, which is really Northeast Africa, populations which is closest to Jews, so to speak, all Eurasian Jewish communities are closer to Caucasus population. Let me read that again. It says Eurasian, it said, let me go back here. All Eurasian, that's Europe and Asia, Eurasian Jewish communities is dealing with the Ashkenazis, this is dealing with the Polish Jews, this is dealing with the Ukrainian Jews, the Jews that's in Russia, the Jews that's in Hungary. It's saying all of these Eurasian Jewish communities are closer to Caucasus population, he writes, with Central European Jews closer to Italian non-Jews as the exception. Look at here. Not one of the 8 evaluated Jewish populations were closer to Levant populations. So what he is saying is they are not related to anyone that's in the territory. They are not original from the area. Even right now, they're citizens. That's why they call themselves Israelis. They're citizens by way of what? They were born there, but they're not originally from there. So according to Jewish geneticists, Aaron Elhake, there is no DNA proof that connects the Ashkenazi Jews to the Middle East. None of the Eurasian Jews, so to speak, to the Northeast Africa. Now, you guys, you know this right here. I went through this identifying who is Gog, Magog. I'm not going to go through all of this tonight, because that's a lot to go through. But I'm going to fast forward to a key area. Let me see here, because I really don't feel like reading all of that. Okay, let me fast forward. All right, let me prove this about, let me go back here. Let me prove this about the Middle East. All right, let me play a quick article here. Not an article, a couple of clips here about the Middle East, and then I'll read this article here. The Middle East is, let me see here. Someone posted here. Let me see here. Oh, Pastor Kelly, you know he removed his site. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised. I would not be surprised. You know, there was some questionable things, and I called it out. There's a video I did on it, exposing it. And matter of fact, while I'm here, anyone that did your DNA test through 23andMe, go to it right now. Go to it before the night is over. Delete your account. Delete your data. 23andMe is now bankrupt. And now they have been given permission through the courts to sell their data to the highest bidder. So I want to say that again. I meant to post that in the community section. And matter of fact, if I have my phone, I got my phone here. I'm going to post this inside the community section, so that way you guys can go in there and do that. Let me do it right now. This is no joke, fam. This is serious. And I'm not surprised that they're bankrupt, because they had a data breach. We all know about that a year ago. And it supposedly targeted one specific group. And I did say that they wouldn't last long, because that was the way of trying to undermine that DNA group, that DNA company, because they revealed through there that the name stealers are actually descendants of the Khazarians, and so connected to the Khazarians. And so they were pressured, anyway, I'm not going to get into all that, but there was a lot of controversy, because many of the younger generation within their community started doing their 23andMe DNA tests, and it was showing that they had no relationship they had no connection to what is called the Middle East or Northeast Africa. And matter of fact, here's a video clip that'll give you a little information on that. Let me see here. I'm not going to play the whole clip. Where is it? I have it here. Dealing with the DNA. Let me play this real quick.
I'm about to show you something extremely controversial. It's even illegal in the state of Israel. Ladies and gentlemen, my DNA. Now, I bet you thought it was going to be a lot crazier than that.
This TikTok caused a storm online, with many debating what his results, which show no trace of being from Palestine or the Middle East, despite being Jewish, mean.
All right, so let me see here. Yeah, here it is. All right, I'm posting it right now. It's in my community channel. All right. All right. So if you go to the community channel, the community section of this post, you will see in the post, you'll see you'll see this screenshot from 23andMe. Let me see here. All right. Just typing something here. Okay. So I just want to just put that out there. You know, if you have a 23andMe account, go up there, delete it, remove it, because now your information, your data, everything that's there is now being sold to the highest bidder. All right, so let's go here. Let me play this clip here. I'm going to play this clip right now. I'm going to play 2 clips, and this is going to give you more information on the Middle East, which is actually Northeast Africa. Some of you guys probably know these clips, but I'm going to play it. Here we go. Where is it? Here we go.
Most Egyptologists and anthropologists, archaeologists of the Eurocentric persuasion will say that Egypt is in Africa. They had to concede that, but then they still draw the line by saying that they weren't Africans like that. In other words, they weren't dark-skinned people. And of course, this is all part of the Great Deception. And the reality is that if they give up Egypt, ancient Kemet, if they give that up and say that that was a part of black Africa, then they will also have to give up Israel. And that's why they draw the line at Egypt, because if they give up Egypt, they've got to give up Israel.
Now, we're going to go over here, and I'm going to show you where Israel sits on the African tectonic plate, which means that Israel is northeast Africa. Now, when we look at this map, this is the Sinai. Okay? This is the Red Sea. This is Egypt. This is the Sinai. This is Israel. All right, this is Saudi Arabia over here. Now, if you see this in Hebrew, it says Haluach Afrikani, the African plate. Here it is right here. Israel is sitting right here. Israel is sitting on the Haluach Afrikani, which means that Israel is northeast Africa.
Without question, we are in Northeast Africa. We are landlocked to Egypt, with the exception of the Suez Canal, which was a man-made ditch, a boundary now between, in fact, it's not even really a boundary anymore since Egypt has reclaimed the Sinai Peninsula. But nevertheless, even those of us who are Pan-Africanists in our thinking and Afrocentric, we forget and we leave off that portion of Northeast Africa and don't want to claim anything beyond that.
Europeans classified this area as the Middle East. You know, and then since this the Middle East, the other question, where the Middle West? Where the Middle North and where the Middle South? They don't have no geographical terms like that.
All right. So I wanted you guys to hear that. You know, I like to play that, the humor in it as well, the way that he articulates it. But that they spoke nothing but the truth. So this is coming from an article titled "The New York Times: How the Middle East Was Invented." Let me read it again. The New York Times: How the Middle East Was Invented. It reads, matter of fact, I'll drop this link inside the comment section because I like to drop links. I like to share sources. So let me share this source here. Before I read it, let me put it inside the comment section. And you guys can vet the source as well. And this will confirm that I am not, representing the source. Let's see here. Let me put the Aaron Elhake one in here first. And then I'll put, let me see here. I want to put this one here first, the genome one first. We drop this inside the comment section. All right. And let me get this source here that I just read from. Let me scroll down. All right, about the Middle East, let's go here. The one that I'm currently going to read from. This is the link to there. All right. Okay, so let's read this. It says, until this century, this is dealing with the 20th century, until this century, nobody talked about the Middle East because neither the term nor the states in the region existed. Both were the works of the victors in World War I, the true begetters of the furies that still rage. The term Middle East was coined in 1901 by Admiral Alfred Thayer Mahon, the celebrated American advocate of naval power. It was popularized in speech in 1916 by Sir Mark Sykes, a British member of Parliament. All right, so I want to make sure you guys understand this. That's why I dropped the link, so you guys can understand that the Middle East is a made-up region. It's Northeast Africa. All right. Now, before I show you a source that I use a lot to further prove that they were not in Egypt, let me share something with you guys about just how barbaric the Khazarians were. Let me show you just how barbaric the Khazars were. Let me see here. Do I have it here? Look at this. I'm going to drop this link here as well so you guys could have it and you guys could vet the source. I don't mind sharing these sources. Let me go here. Let me get this link here before we continue. All right, let me go there. I'm going too far back. All right, yeah, here it is. Let me get this source that I'm going to read from. All right. And I'm going to drop a link here just in case my cousin want to jump on. I know he's up late, so. But now if you're still up, you could jump on. I'm dropping this inside the chat. Okay. Now let me read this source here, this article. All right. Let me switch. All right. Researchers test 2,400-year-old leather and realize it's made of human skin. Let me say that again. Researchers test 2,400-year-old leather and realize it's made of human skin. A group of horse riding warriors kept some gruesome battle trophies. Scythians in modern day Ukraine made leather out of human skin. And for those that don't know this, the Scythians are the same as the Khazars. They're the same people. I may even share that real quick before we get to a final source that I want to get to. And matter of fact, yeah, I'm going to have to share that just so that way you can understand the last source that I'm going to share. So it says Scythians in modern day Ukraine made leather out of human skin. A team of researchers has determined, likely a Macabre trophy item, the discovery affirms a claim by the ancient Greek historian Herodotus, who wrote extensively on the Scythian way of life. In their work, the researchers used paleoprotemics, or protemics, excuse me if I'm butchering it here, to establish the sources of leather found on 14 different Scythian or Scythian sites in southern Ukraine. The manifold sources sheep, goat, cattle, horse, and yes, human hair suggest that the Escritrian, I can't even say it now. I don't know why I can't even say it here. Equestrian, excuse me. I'm butchering it tonight. My apologies, family. I don't know why I want to say a different word. But anyway, equestrian steppe group had a sophisticated knowledge of leather working. All right. But nevertheless, we see here that they use human skin for leather. Why is this important? Let me show you here. You guys already know about Nat Turner. I shared a source here of how they use human skin, our human skin during slavery for shoes, pocketbooks, belts. They used our hair for pillows. But this real quick, I'm not going to read it all, but leather from human skin. I remember the 2 or 3 years ago, I accidentally or incidentally referred to a prominent physician of the city wearing shoes made from the skin of Negroes. He still adhered to that custom, insisting that the tan hide of an African makes the most enduring and the most pliable leather known to man. Right? He goes on to say this here, right? Matter of fact, let me just read it here. Only last week, I met him upon the street with a brand new pair of shoes. I looked at his footwear as I always do. His pedal coverings have an irresistible fascination. For me, he said with a smile, is the downtrodden African still beneath your feet? In the most matter-of-fact way, and without the shadow of a smile, he answered, I suppose you mean to inquire if I still wear shoes made of the skin of a Negro. I certainly do, and I don't propose changing in that respect until I find a leather, right? In other words, a stronger leather. That's what he's saying. All right? This is more of that here. I'm not going to read it all, but let me see here. Let me see here. Because even in some sources, they mention how the Scythians, they were barbarians. They did some crazy things. Let me see here. Oops. Let's go back here. All right. All right. Let's go to the Scythians here. I think it's under the Scythians. Yeah, savagery. Here it is. All right. So the Scythians. So the Anchor Bible Dictionary definition of Scythians. Look, let's see what it says. It says, biblical scholars sometimes associate the Scythians or Scythians with Ashkenaz. So that means the Scythians, Ashkenaz, they are a connected family with the bringers of destruction in the prophecies of Jeremiah and Zephaniah. Outside the Hebrew Bible, their reputation for savagery, and it gives some text here. 2 Maccabees 4:7, 3 Maccabees 7:5. It gives you sources here, but it makes it clear outside the Hebrew Bible, their reputation for savagery is alluded to. But we see that the Scythians or Scythians, they are connected to Ashkenaz. And we know that Ashkenaz is connected to the Khazars. Let me see here. Let me see. Is this the? I was looking for the Ashkenaz. That's the Scythians. All right. Anyway, I was looking for the Scythians. I don't have it here. I thought I did. Not the Scythians, the Ashkenaz. All right. But when we go to the Khazars, look at this here. Khazars, a Turkish people, or excuse me, a people of Turkish origin whose life and history are interwoven with the very beginning of the history of the Jews of Russia. But they say that they try to refer to this as being anti-Semitic when their own source, the Jewish Encyclopedia, Volume 4, 1904, page 1, under Khazars, it says a people of Turkish origin whose life and history are interwoven with the very beginnings of the history of the Jews of Russia. Matter of fact, this is my friend, Sister Carol. Let me let you guys hear the contradictions of the gift that keeps giving, who contradicts himself over and over again. But let's see how he contradicts himself about the Khazars. Let's see what he says here.
As far as the alleged conversion of the Khazars, you can read at Yehuda Halevi's book, The Khazari, that it may be true that as there is debate and discussion there, a Turkic people a little over 1,000 years ago, that some of the leaders or some of the people did, in fact, convert to Judaism and then became part of the larger Jewish people. Khazars as a whole disappear from history. That's it. End of subject. There is no Khazarian mafia. There is not a single Jew on the planet that can be traced back in any definitive way to the Khazars. Zero.
How the Khazars converted to Judaism, leaders and people, and then in the next breath he says, not a single Jew can be connected to them. That's why I said the gift that keeps giving. But anyway, let's go to a key point here. So we know that the Khazars, we know that the Scythians, we know that the Ashkenazis, they are all connected to each other. They're the same people. But let me go to this one source here to prove. This source will prove, even though we already know this, but it's going to further prove that they were never in Egypt. Cranium Aegyptica, Samuel Morton, MD. You guys know I bring this out from time to time when I give this key piece of information. I'm going to take it a step further. If it be allowable to make these data the basis of calculations for the past 35 centuries, it will follow that upwards of 10 million of Negroes have been brought as bondsmen into Egypt during that period. The vast influx of Negroes into the valley of the Nile must necessarily have left its impression on the physical traits of the Egyptians themselves in modern times, as seen in the Copts, and in more distant periods, as proved by the Negroid heads, in which both the configuration and expression are too obvious to be mistaken. But it may be inquired, how does it happen that Negroes or their descendants should be found in the catacombs if they constitute a menial or slave caste in Egypt? Then when we skip over to page 66, it says Negroes were numerous in Egypt, but their social position in ancient times was the same that it now is, that of servants and slaves. So Samuel Morton, he was a racist. He was a racist. But one thing they didn't disregard is this portion right here. When he identified that the slaves, those craniums that he examined, that those Negroes that was enslaved in Egypt, they are the same as the slaves during 1844. Come on, family. It's right here. It's right here. But he didn't stop there. He said something else inside this his writings here, his findings, that really caught my attention, especially when I did a very deeper discovery on Scythians, the Khazarians, the Ashkenazis, and really got to see that you had Scythian Jots, right, who are connected to The Norsemen, in other words, the Vikings. That's right. That's right. And you'll see the Scythians, the Ashkenazis, the Khazars. You'll see them in Spain and Portugal. Some of them going by the name of Sephardic. Oh, come on now. That's a mic drop right there, right? I know y'all like, oh, Pastor. That's right. Just like that old song with Tupac, and I believe it was Humpty and those guys. I get around. The Scythians got around. They was all over the place. But let me show you here, because we mentioned the Scythians. Samuel Morton was clear that the Negroes were enslaved in ancient Egypt. Samuel Morton was also clear that not a single skull from the Scythians were discovered in ancient Egypt. Oh my goodness, right? Digital Underground, right? Samuel Morton, again, was also clear clear that not a single skull from the ancient Scythians, right, from the Scythians, which these are the Khazars, these are the Ashkenazis, were discovered in ancient Egypt. Look at this, right? The national characteristics of all these families of man are distinctly figured on the monuments, and all of them, excepting the Scythians and Phoenicians, have been identified in the catacombs. That's a mic drop. I'm reading this right here. Let me zoom in so that way you guys can see. I read number 9, right? Paragraph 9. The national characteristics of all these families of man are distinctly figured on the monuments, and all of them excepting the Scythians and Phoenicians have been identified in the catacombs. So if they were scattered, if they were like how we were mentioned in Exodus chapter 1, that we were numerous. We was growing at such a rate that we was all through Egypt. Why didn't they find them? If they supposed to be originally from the area, why didn't they find any skulls of the Scythians or Ashkenazis or Khazars? Are there any proof, any other proof that Egyptians' skin complexion was very dark? Yes, there is, but I'm not going to go into it tonight. I encourage you guys to get this book right here. Right? I'll show you here real quick. Let me go through a couple of these images and I'll show you this book. This is Amenhotep, right? He's a pharaoh, ruled 1390 to 53 BC, right? Look at this here. This doesn't look like a Caucasian. This is Queen Tai, right? Mother of Akhenaten and grandmother of Tut. See how she looks? She doesn't look like a Caucasian. Here's another image of Queen of Tai, mother, again, Akhenaten, mother of Tut, grandmother of Tut, excuse me. Yeah, King Tut's grandmother. Look at the hair. Look at the color. I'm not going to get into the Arab invasion. Don't feel like going through all of that tonight. But let me go to I think I have some additional images here. Let me see here. This is the source that I want to share. Black Genesis is some great information inside this book. Some great information inside this book. Get some great information about this guy in the background, Diop, and how They were scared to allow him to test the ancient the mummies, to prove that they were dark melanated people. All right, but they whitewashed all that stuff. Anyway, let me go here. Let me show you this here. This is a bus that was created because they didn't want the world to know that the ancient Egyptians are dark melanated people. So they created this fake bus. This is Nefertiti. Supposedly, this is the Nefertiti. Deceptive modern day Egyptologists want you to believe she would have looked like this. Anything but the Negroid, right? The Negroes. This is Nefertari, right? Moses Nefertari. This is her mummified body. Look at the hair. That in itself says it all. She was not a Caucasian. She was a Negro. But 18th dynasty. This is her nurse, Dame Ray. Look at the hair. Look at the braids. Look at the curly hair. Right? Let me see. Do I have another one? This is another source. Anthronotes, National Museum of Natural History newsletter for teachers. Just real quick, I'll just cover a little bit out of here. The roots of ancient Egypt. Who were the ancient Egyptians? Should the origins of their magnificent achievement be sought in the Middle East or in Africa? Were they themselves white or black? These questions have been disputed by scholars since the beginning of written history. Most recently, anthropological studies of human remains from Northeast Africa, together with new archaeological evidence from Egypt to Nubia, offer us a new understanding of Egyptian origins in which Africa played the major role. And this is where it goes on and gives some additional information. It says, Africa and Egypt pre-1945 views. Early writers described the Egyptians as dark-skinned and woolly-haired. It mentions Herodotus with origins in or close ties to the ancient people and cultures of Ethiopia. We see Diodorus of Sicily, but nevertheless, it says in this 18th century, ancient Egyptian civilization was rediscovered by travelers and plunderers from Europe, whose view of the ancient Egyptians was drawn largely from Egyptian art. In the absence of scientific archaeology or a code for deciphering hieroglyphic writings, after viewing the undamaged profile of the Sphinx, which the French author de Volney described as Negro in all its features, he wrote, "Just think that the race of black men today, our slave, and the object of our scorn is the very race to which we owe our arts, sciences, and even the use of speech." Come on, family. This is a mic drop right here. Let me read this again. Let me go back a little bit. And again, Nation Museum of Natural History newsletter. That's where this is coming from. Rediscovered by ancient travelers and plunderers from Europe, whose view of the ancient Egyptians was drawn largely from Egyptian art in the absence of scientific archaeology or a code for deciphering hieroglyphic writings. After viewing the undamaged profile of the Sphinx, or Sphinx, however you want to pronounce it, which the French author de Volney describes as a Negro in all its features, he wrote, just think that this race of black men today, our slave and the object of our scorn, is the very race to which we owe our arts, sciences, and even the use of speech. Come on, family. They know we the people of the book. They know this. And it goes on to say, just imagine finally that it is in the midst of peoples who call themselves the greatest friends of liberty and humanity, that one has approved the most barbarous slavery and questioned whether black men have the same kind of intelligence as whites. Come on, family. See, that's why Napoleon, that's why they damaged the different statues there, starting with the Sphinx. It blew his mind to see that there was a culture, there was a community that far outdated his and was far more educated. Far more educated. The Greek historians, the Greek philosophers, they copped their stuff from the Egyptians. See, family, that's the issue that they have. They know that we are the originals. This is where you get the word primitive. See, when you study ancient Hebrew, right? Even when you go to some of these, especially the strong concordance, right? You'll see the Hebrew Strong. You'll see they always, for the most part, they'll point to the primitive root word. So the primitive root word means that this primitive root word means it's the original. I'll use this for example. I mentioned Moses earlier. Let me show you this for example. Masha. Now, this is, right? Let me see if I can back out of here. Look at here. So if you go here, Moshe, entry 4873, it tells you, it doesn't really give you a definition. It says the prophet and lawgiver, leader of Exodus. And it says that his name is Moshe, right? Even though we don't see, anyway, I'm not getting into all that, but Moshe. But it tells us to go to 4872 entry. But then when you go to 4872, it says here, drawing out of the water, an example rescued, Moshe, the Israelite lawgiver, Moses, but it still didn't give you the definition of the word. Now notice it tells you to go to 4871. Up here is 4871. It says a primitive root. So this tells you that Moshe, if you remove these dots, these marks, the actual primitive pronunciation of Moses' name is not Moshe, it is Masha. In Israeli, the Nakud system, right, these are kamets, and this makes the ah sound. So they're telling you it's pronounced Masha, Masha. This dot is to the right. So instead of saying it'd be pronounced with a sh. So Masha, which means this is the primitive root. In other words, this is the original pronunciation of the word. It's right in front of you, family. It's right in front of you. And this is why they want to make everything that's our strengths into like a byword, mocking us. Come on, family. So I just proved to you, I have more sources to prove that they were not in Egypt. We already know this. They were not in Egypt. They did not look like this. They look like this. Let me zoom in before we wrap up. They look like this. Many of them had locks. All right. Didn't have a chance to put the locks on there on some of them, but most of them had locks. But they didn't look like this. And they didn't have this little lock. They didn't look like this. Amen. 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 So family, really appreciate it. Appreciate the love and support. We're going to wrap it up here. Thank you guys for being up late with me. And thanks again. Let me go through the super chat. I know I didn't post the Cash App inside the chat like I normally do. But I want to thank again Cheryl Steele for the love and support. Family, want to encourage you guys because YouTube is doing all kinds of crazy stuff with this channel, shadow banning me. So what I would encourage you to do, even after this lesson is over, go into the comment section and just type a comment in there. That's going to help the reachability of the video. It'll help, get us out of this, at least try to pull us out of this algorithm. So hit that like button. Let me say that again. Hit the like button. Hit the like button, right? Subscribe to the channel. If you are subscribed to the channel, I'll say this again. If you are subscribed to the channel, double check and make sure you are still subscribed to the channel. What many of you guys may not know, I saw the analytics. I have the information. YouTube has deleted over 23,000 subscribers from We Woke Now. Let me say that again. YouTube has deleted over 23,000 subscribers from this channel. So technically, we should have already surpassed 100,000 subscribers. Technically, we should be pushing about 110 to 120,000 subscribers. So they've been suppressing this channel, right? They've been keeping us at 84,800. It's been hovering between 880 to between 870, 880 subscribers for like almost 3 months. It'll go up and then it'll stop right there. So I just want to encourage you guys, if you are subscribed, double check to make sure you still are still subscribed. If you're not subscribed, subscribe to the channel. Hit that like button. We should be able to have easily 300-400 likes there. That's going to help the reachability. And again, on your way out, just type in the comment section. Just type a comment inside the comment section. Doesn't cost anything. But what that'll do is it'll help the reachability of this video. So I appreciate you guys for the love and support. And again, thank you, Cheryl, Sister Cheryl, for the super chat. Really appreciate it. And family, as we're going to go ahead and close out. Right? Let me go ahead and do this here. We're going to get ready to close out. So again, I really appreciate the love and support. Man, I got my big glass of, I had to drink my water, man. I had to grab my water. All right. But thank you guys for the love and support. Really appreciate you guys. But let's go ahead and wrap this up and I'm going to take it down. Matter of fact, I think I'm a sports guy, so I think Duke won. I think my bracket is looking pretty good. I don't gamble, nothing like that. But during the college basketball, I'll just fill out a bracket, just so I follow who's who. And I'm at 99.4. I'm like in the top, I think something like 90,000, something like that. Yeah. Anyway, but family, let's go ahead and wrap it up here. Let's wrap it up. In the words of Yahweh that he gave to Moses to encourage the children of Israel while they were, at what seemed to be a dead end, and they were ready to go back into Egypt. They was really panicking, and the Most High had to give them an encouraging word. And that encouraging word was, from Exodus chapter 14, verse 13 and 14. Fear ye not, stand still. See the salvation of Yahweh. These Egyptians that you see here today, you will never have to see them again. In other words, they will not have power over us ever again. They may exist, but they will never have power over us ever again. The Most High will fight for you. But here's the kicker, family. We have to hold our peace. And the Hebrew word that you see there is kharash, which means be quiet. Can't go back, can't stay here, keep moving forward. Shalom.
Listen, Genesis chapter 11 verse 10 explains the genealogy of Shem. Shem was a black man in Africa. If you repeat this back, Genesis 14 verse 13, Abraham steps on the scene. Being the descendant of Shem, which is a fact, means Abraham too was Abraham, born in the city of a black man called Nimrod, grandson of Ham. Ham had 4 sons. One was named Canaan. Here, let me do some explaining. Abraham, Isaac was Jacob had 12 sons, for real, and these were the children of Israel. According to Genesis chapter 10, these were the children of Israel. According to Genesis chapter 10, these were the children of Israel.